This is Larry Hedrick for Mysteries of Superstition Mountains, where we bring the past into the present for our future viewers. Today we have another great story by Jack San Felice.
This story about the Superstition Mountains is called The Mystery of Hidden Canyon. Now, where is Hidden Canyon? That's my name for it. It's a hard place to get to. Very difficult. You drive out past Canyon Lake, past Tortilla Flat, and you take the road toward Fish Creek Hill. You're going up the hill, and then there'll be a dirt road going to the right, and it was an old cowboy road. But you take that dirt road, and it was part of the original road built to Lake Roosevelt, or Roosevelt Dam, when they were working on building the dam in the early 1900s. I believe the dam was opened officially in 1911 with Teddy Roosevelt. But part of that foundation of the road is still there. The bridge is there. So you ride back, and it's directly across from a place called Mesquite Flats. Mesquite Flats. So you park there because you can't go anymore. That road is dead-ended right there, and you're now on the new road, which would be to your left. Well, anyhow, you're back in there, and it's on this dirt road. It was the part of the old stagecoach road back in the early 1900s, late 1800s. Well, an old friend, a cowboy friend of mine from Montana named Don Warner. I met him about 1993, and we went there the first time in 1994. He showed it to me, and we go up this very steep vertical climb. Wow, I mean, it was tough. So once we get up there, it levels off, but you're still going uphill, and you climb underneath a gun sight. And if you're up near Fish Creek, and on the other side, up on a knoll up there, you can look across and see that gun sight. You can actually see it. And that was one of the clues, the early clues, that some of the searchers for the Lost Dutchman mine used, the gun sight. Well, we walked up under that gun sight, and then we kept to the left, because if you go to the right, you're headed towards Tortilla Flat, and that is really, really hard way to get there. So we hiked up to the left, and we found an old fence line, and we followed the fence line up and to the right, and then we continued on up there till we found a peculiar looking rock. It looked like one of the early dinosaurs, and it had the eye in it. So if you don't find that rock, you'll never find your way into Hidden Canyon. So we find the rock, and I climb up over top and look, and here comes Don, and we're looking down. He said, there it is. There is the Omega on your left, and the heart-shaped rock with a crack in it on the right, underneath the shadow almost of Tortilla Mountain. He said, I want to go there. I said, well, Don, it took us so long to get here. We'll never make it down in there and out before dark. I can't do it. We won't be able to do it. Where's the trail? He said, well, there is no trail. He said, you just got to make your own route. You mean you've never been in there? He said, no, I've never been able to get anybody in there. Well, this is like a horse of a different color right now. One, it's a hard trip to get where we can see the thing. Two, that looks like the only way in. And number three, this is a big old cowboy. So, okay, we'll do it another time, but we plan on spending the night. So a few weeks later, we go back up, and we come to the same entrance, and before we get there though, the other way we took was closer to Tortilla Creek. He took me another route. And so we take this other route. Like I said, there was no trail, and we had to go over the hogbacks. It was quicker to get to the hogbacks, but harder to get over them. So now we're bouldering over the hogbacks to get to this dinosaur with the eye. So we finally get up. I told him, why didn't we take the other way? He said, I wanted to try this way to see if this route was easier. Well, guess what? It wasn't easier. Well, anyhow, we get up and we look down. I said, Don, if you take one way and I take the other, and look down in the middle of that canyon in this valley, and you look at this valley, you will see in there that huge boulder. The boulder was as big as this great room, and you could climb on top of it. And what I did when I got there, but Don said, I'll go to the right. I want to see if over on the right here, there's an easier way, because if there was a way down to the right, we could have gone easier to get to that boulder where we had planned to make camp. I go to the left, which now I'm following line of sight. I'm going to come out, my route should come out at the Omega, and then we could go right down. No way. There's just no way. I get out there and I get on a ledge. I'm dead-ended. Now I have a choice. It took me an hour and a half to get to that point. Or I can either rappel down or go back and take another hour and a half and then go down the very rough route down through the middle, which I had never been before. So I decided I'm going to rappel down this hill. It's about 50 feet of rope's what I need. In my pack, I have just 50 feet of rope. I toss my stick over the mountain, over the hill, and it's about straight down. But being in the Army, I'd rappelled a lot. And I worked as a lumberjack for a while, so I didn't have a problem. Except when I had to find a place to tie off. So I had to climb up a little bit, 8 feet. I found an old ironwood tree, tied up my rope, jumped around on it, make sure it would hold. And I go back down where I'm going to leap over this little cliff and go down. But when I get down, guess what? I'm 8 feet short. So I have a choice there. I'm hanging on to the rope. I'm looking over. I said, I go to the left, it's all saguaros. And saguaros have spines that go straight out. I go to the right. I'm going into the cholla cactus. The chollas were about 4 to 5 feet high. I said, they have rounded, curved needles. I said, that's where I'm going. So I figured that's the way I'd go. So I kicked myself around, made the drop, land on the right, and I roll into the barrel. I roll into that sucker, and it tore my arms up because I hit, boom. I hit with velocity, I rolled. What happened was I put my sleeping pack on the top, and I was out of balance. But one thing, the sleeping pack hit first, and so all I tore out was my arms. I patched myself up. I was bleeding all over the place. I patched myself up because it was, wasn't cold. It was warm during the day. And I had stuff to fix me up, reset my bag, and I walked on down the hill and up on top of the rock. No sign of dawn. Absolutely no sign of dawn. I don't know where to look. I get out my little binocular. I can't find him. I don't see him. It's all rough terrain and a lot of saguaros and ironwood trees, mesquite trees. I look up. I still don't see him. Finally, I stay on top of the rock so I could see him, and I'm waving on. I'm getting ready to shoot my gun off. And just about the time I'm ready to shoot my gun off, he comes walking out of the wooded area, and he comes on down to the rock. And we said, wow, you're here in time for supper. So I build a fire, we have our supper, and we chit-chat about what the morning would bring. We're gonna follow the creek bed, that we're gonna walk in the dry part of the creek bed, and that'll lead us right to the back of Tortilla Mountain. And we go right, it leads right to the Heart Rock. Well, that's where we want to go, is to the Heart Rock. We go to bed that night. It was the worst night I ever had in the Superstitions in my life. In my mind, this was a spooky, spooky place, for one thing. The noises that come out at night when you're out in the mountains in a valley by yourself. I heard a baby crying all night, a baby crying. And not only that, from the way we came in, I looked up on the ledges, and there was what appeared to be a man watching us. Yeah, you could see his silhouette. And he was there. He was there all night. I had a baby crying, sounds of a baby crying. I had that. And when the moon came up over the Tortilla Mountain, it was like the whole mountain is swallowing you up. And I said, man, this is a weird, weird place. And as the story continues, you'll see why I felt that way. I couldn't sleep. So at 4 o'clock in the morning, I said, enough of this. I get up, start the fire. I filter some water from Tortilla Creek. That was the one good thing. We're 40 feet from the running water. Now that I liked. We're 40 feet from running water, and that's great. So I boil some water. I have some oatmeal. Wow, in the desert, I'm having cooked oatmeal. And I had some tea and some muffins, whatever I had. Finally, dawn wakes up about 5:30, 6 o'clock. Now it's daylight. I look up on the ledge. No man. No man. No rock. It wasn't a rock. And there's nothing there. Nothing there. I said, you're kidding me. It's not a rock. That was an imagination of a rock. There's nothing there. So now I'm getting weirder feeling. I'm getting weirder feelings. So at the same time I'm looking at that rock that's not there, or man that's not there, I see a bobcat going into its den right below where the man had, quote, supposed to have been. That answers the question. The baby crying. A bobcat or a cat, even a mountain lion, sometimes can make sounds like a baby crying. Or kittens, young mountain lions will cry, and they sound like a baby. That answered that. So by 6 o'clock, I'm already had my breakfast, and I'm ready to daylight dawn. He must have smelled my oatmeal cooking, so he finally got up. We said, we got to get a start on the day. So I said, Don, while you're eating your breakfast, I'm going to go behind this boulder. Huge boulder we're on. And I walk behind it, and I see a fire pit. And it was about 4 feet by 4 feet, okay? And in the middle of it was a tree growing up about this big. I said, well, somebody's been here, but they ain't been here in a long time. So I go around, and I find a bridle and a bit and a rope, an old blue rope, and bones. Some animal with 4 feet died there, and it was tied to that tree. I said, where's the prospector? So I started looking some more. I called for Don. He comes around, and we move some dirt. We see some stuff sticking out, a black tarp. I pull it out. It's a rolled up, handmade sleeping bag. Within that sleeping bag, there was a pair of pants, like your checkered shirt. It was a checkered pair of pants, white and brown checkered pants and paisley shirt. Nobody wore that combination except the hippies in the 60s and 70s. So whoever was here in the 60s and 70s. What else? I find some an old top, not a top like a hat, it's called a top tobacco can. And there was old canned goods, and the date believe it or not, there was a date on one of those tobacco cans, like the 1970s, and it was from a drugstore that had closed down in Mesa in about 1970. So whoever was out there was a hippie type guy, would wear paisley with checks. Who would do that? Only a hippie. I figured, this is a strange character. The mule's here, that's there, where's the guy? Where's the prospector? The trees growing up, that's a mystery. Where happened to the mule? No person in their right mind would leave a mule tied up to die, or a horse tied up to die. I wasn't quite sure. So Dawn, I said, we're going to leave this mystery. Let's go find the cave by the stone heart. Sometime over the years, that part of Tortilla Creek had filled up with large boulders. And we had a very difficult time navigating. So we tried to stay on the periphery or the outer edges. Sometimes we have to go back and forth across it to find our way up there. And it took forever. It didn't seem like it was that long, but it took forever bouldering around those rocks to get there. Besides, Don was not that good of a hiker. And he was like a cowboy, and he was wearing cowboy boots. Who hikes in the mountains wears cowboy boots? An old cowboy. He was from Montana. We go up to the stone heart, and I'm looking around. There's the old cave, and it's collapsed in. I said, well, Don, we looked around some more he was there forever. I walked over to the Omega. Now, Alpha means the beginning. The Omega means the end. On the old Peralta stone maps, both of them are there. There's an Omega sign, and there's the stone heart. And if you move the heart, it's like a depression, like a cave or a mine. Now, that was his theory. You move the heart, because behind the heart, underneath the heart, was a cave or a mine. We couldn't get in there. I said, we are not going in there. You surely today have any designs on trying to get in there. He was looking for debris. In other words, he was looking for mule shoes, horseshoes. He was looking for signs that the Spanish were there or that the Jesuits had been there and left some sort of a monument. None of that we found. And also, I found no azurite, chrysocolla, or malachite, or white quartz. And those are signs. There'll be copper, and if there's copper in Arizona, there's going to be gold. That's about 99%. Didn't find any of that. Didn't find any copper, gold, or silver, or whatever. I didn't find it. But then we were in a pretty confined area, and it was so difficult to get there. He was so slow going across the rocks with cowboy boots. So I said, Don, we ate some lunch. I had some snacks, and he didn't have any lunch. He didn't bring any breakfast. He didn't bring any supper. I said, you really weren't prepared for this, were you? He said, no, I thought we'd get down in one day and out. So he didn't even have a sleeping bag. He brought a little blanket. That was all. But he was an old cowboy. I guess he roughed it in Montana. He was used to it. So we decided we're going to head back. We're going to head back, okay? Well, about halfway back, Don falls and knocks himself out. Bam. He's laying down there, and he's not moving. I mean, he knocked himself out. He hit his head right here. He's got a big old lump. I go there to get him, and he's behind me now. He's behind me about maybe 100 feet, because I'm making a way and breaking a path. I go back to check on him, and he's just laying there. I said, oh, crap. He died of a heart attack. So we sat there for about an hour, maybe an hour and a half. And I talked about him. He was telling me about his cowboy stories in Montana, how he was a cowboy there. He broke broncs as a young man, and he would rope the wild steers and whatnot. I said, Don, how old are you? He said, I'm 75. I was 53. I said, what am I doing with this old man? I'm 81 now. 81. That's what I think. Guys think of me in their 50s. They think I'm an old man. But here I was, 53, in good shape. And he can't even come to. I said, Don, I'm going to leave you my knife and some matches. You could start a fire or something. And I got a cell phone. And I'm going to climb on the ridge. It'll take me about 3 or 4 hours to get out of here, maybe, where I can get service, and we'll call you. I'll call for help. He said, no, I'll be okay. He got mad at me. He was an old cowboy, remember? They're self-reliant. So he says, okay. He said, you help me, Jack, and we'll get out. Well, it was a 6-hour getting out of there. 6 hours. I know first aid and things. I thought maybe he had a concussion, but I didn't see signs of a concussion. One, he wasn't nauseous. Two, he didn't have the other, he could focus his eyes. How many fingers I'm holding up? He was that way. He was just knocked himself out. So get him up, and we're walking out. And I'm holding on to him and going up the hill. Remember, there's no trail. I have my hiking stick, I have my backpack, and I've got Dawn. And we're going up this mountain, up to get out where the dinosaur with the eye is. And we're going through the little gap. It's just a little saddle in the mountains there. We get up there, and what the good thing is, from the time we get up there where that dinosaur is, you can look over and see Canyon Lake. You can see part of Canyon Lake. And also you can almost see part of Tortilla Flat. But you can see the rifle sight or the pistol sight right as to where we're going to go down the mountain and get back to my Ford Explorer. So it was it's almost dark by the time we got to the rifle sight or the gun sight, which is called, to the clue and go down. Now, remember, the last part is also the hardest part. Now we get under the gun sight, but then you got to go vertical down. I said, Don, this is going to be tough. He sat on his butt all the way down that vertical part. He sat down, and of course his clothes were black. By the time he gets in I made him sit on a blanket. He didn't like that, but he sat on the blanket. I said, Don, I said, I want to come back here. I said, I guess I'll have to get back. And he says, yeah, Jack, you know what he said? I don't think you better take me. He said, I don't think I can make it. You know what else he told me? He said the reason he couldn't get anybody else to go with him, he's known about that place for 10 or 15 years, because his stomach was messed up from bronc riding, and he had mesh put in his stomach twice, and they wouldn't put it in a third time. And that's why nobody else would hike with him. And couldn't get a doctor to put that in a third time. So here I am up there on the mountain with a guy who weighs 250 pounds. He has no cell phone. He has no other clothes. He doesn't have a backpack. He's not prepared for this. He's prepared for an in and outer. We got them, and I had food. I always carry food and drink. I got them, and I got them home okay. I never again hiked with Dawn. Never again. And I lost track of them. Well, here we have the mystery of the hidden canyon. We have the heart rock that fits a description of the Peralta stones. We have the omega being the ending. Here's the end. Here's the heart. It fits the story if you believed in the stone maps. Me, it was always a 50-50 at that time. As I later in some stories, you'll find out about the stone maps and what I know about them now, today, 25 years later. But that the thing of the mule or the horse tied up, and the old prospectors, somebody died out there, because the man would not leave, a man that got a mule or a horse will not leave them in the mountains. I'm going back and I'm searching the newspaper. Besides, these were hippie clothes. Checkered pants, paisley shirts, give me a break. And I said paisley shirt, flowery, and then when I said these were bell bottoms, the checkered pants were bell bottoms. So this is early 70s. And the top cans, so that's when I found out that they're from the drugstore that quit about 1970. So I started looking for people who were missing in the Superstition Mountains, who may have been missing there. I find a story of a doctor that's missing in the Superstitions. Here's a story of this doctor. He was a young doctor, and his father was a medical doctor. And they were both surgeons also. And the young doctor didn't really want to be a doctor anymore. He said he had seen enough. He had seen enough blood and guts, and he couldn't deal with it anymore. He was going to get himself a mule and become a hermit in the Superstition Mountains. Didn't say where. I said, wait a minute. The things are starting to put together here. He's a doctor who wants to give up on life and hide where nobody's going to find him, okay? Where he can live and live like a hermit. Number 2, he's going to take a mule. The mule, I said, Number 3, he's going to have supplies and have to have. Remember I said, this hole, we dug it out. There was canned goods that had been there for years and years where things had just dried up in them. So this is the mystery. I find the mystery of the doctor going in there, but I went to ASU library where they have microfilm all in the early newspapers. I spent weeks looking for a found person, a found doctor. I'm keeping the names out of it to protect the innocent, so to speak. He may have been found, may not have been found. I feel that had he been found, they would have buried the mule or whatever. But I never saw that story that a man, a missing person, or let alone a doctor, let alone a mule. And there was an old blue rope. It's all rotted. The bones, some of the bones were there. And it was right at the angle where tied up to a tree. The rope was tied up to the tree and the bones were there. I went back there several times with some young hikers, guys that I knew could hike, including Jack Carlson. And he and some other younger guys than Jack and I would go with those so they could help an old guy not like me, because it's now 2000. So finally I'm back in there and I take one of the leg bones and I have it taken to a vet, an animal vet that treats horses and mules and whatnot. I said, that's definitely a mule bone. See, definitely from an old mule. Okay, that solved that thing. Now, I go back to ASU looking for a mule being found dead. I don't. And I couldn't find any, let me say this, I couldn't find any evidence that anybody else been there at that campsite. Nobody, where that big tree had grown up there, nobody would start a fire there, and I found no more fire pits. The last time I was there, about 2007 or 8, I went back in with a couple of young guys and showed them how to get in and out of there. Somebody had built a set of steps out of weathering wood. So when you start going down, and they put a piece of wire down, so it would be easier to get down in there. So somebody had built, maybe someone looking for cattle, maybe it was a cowboy, because I don't know when they stopped. I do not know when they stopped running animals in the area of Tortilla Ranch. Maybe somebody like Larry could tell you, or another old cowboy. But there lies one of the true mysteries of the Superstition Mountains. The heart, the omega, the missing doctor, the mine or cave that was collapsed, and the old mule who died tied up to a tree. One of the real mysteries. And that hidden canyon, as far as I'm concerned, it was probably one of the toughest hikes I've ever gone on, in 2,000 times going into the mountain.
Thank you for watching this episode of Mysteries of the Superstition Mountains.